good morning.
It is indeed.
How you been, brother?
Cold.
Indeed.
Not as cold as some other people, and not like once every 50-year snowstorm in LA cold, but...
Oh, I've even been tracking on that. They lose all their power and die?
Well, it was like a couple of weeks ago. There was like the random snowstorm that reached into the southern half of California and was like, wow.
Gotcha. Just the way you said it, I thought you meant that like, California was having another bizarre unseasonal snowstorm.
No, well, it's what they call it.
Hopeful.
Well, it's why they've decided to settle on climate change.
Of
course. And I can't
because after 30 years of screaming global warming, everybody was like, where? Because I want to subscribe. I'm in. Get me some of that.
Right. Well, and of course, have you ever watched the documentary that Leonard Nimoy narrated where we talked about the potential coming ice age?
Of the new ice age that was supposed to take over the world in the 80s?
Yeah. I don't remember that it was actually in the 80s, but yeah, it's why they call it climate change, because climate.
Yeah, if you keep using aerosol hairspray, you're going to set the planet on fire, and then we're all going to freeze to death.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Fluorocarbons are much heavier than ozone molecules. How did they get all the way up there from just a little Aquanet?
And I'm not even saying the hairspray was a good idea, but the pushback wasn't great either.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, it turns, the intersection of woke and the NPCs cannot be ignored. Like,
right, it's called psychopathy.
Well, there's just the legions of people. Like, I'm seeing this one a lot where people are like, oh yeah. Well, you take your kid to church, so who's the real groomer? And I'm just like
you are.
You, dude. Absolutely 100% you. If you don't understand the difference between religion and drag, the problem is not me. Like, not at all. So speaking of, excuse me, my eye just suddenly. Okay, so
I love the ones where they equate priests in robes to, these are men in dresses, and you let them tell you what to do.
First of all,
okay, let's talk about the Scots for a minute. For real, come at me while I'm wearing my skirt, and I will laugh at you in throws telephone poles for fun.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed though the whole British Empire is not what it once was. You probably could tell Scots what to do.
I've actually had some pretty lengthy and interesting conversations about that with no shit landed gentry from the region as recently as last October.
So, speaking of brain dead NPCs and their woke takes, where they think they're clever.
God, they're so clever.
Well, it's like Ronald Reagan said. It's not that your liberal friends are wrong. It's just that they know so many things that aren't so.
Like this. Okay, Jack Hopkins. I've never heard of him, but he has a blue check. So what is that? $8 a month? Go Jack. Good for you. Here's proof that Trump is scared to death of being indicted. It all says, the walls are closing in. We've got him this time, kiddos. His
2 more weeks, Blue Anon.
His lawyer, Joe Tapioca, met
That's
with
how I read it. I know that's not what it is.
An indictment. Tacopina told Ari Melber that part of his argument was that if Trump was indicted, it would put him straight back in the White House. Let's break this down. If you're Trump and convinced you're innocent, while also being convinced that if you were indicted, it will propel you back to the White House, you'd be begging to be indicted. That's not what's happening, though. Trump and his lawyers are begging to not be indicted. See how that works? As I have said for a long time, Donald Trump is scared out of his damn mind. That's just a fact. Okay, so let me tell you why you should be amused at the current round of indictments.
Well, hold on. Just real quick. I just want to make this clear. Nobody ever wants to be indicted for any reason ever. It doesn't matter if you're guilty or you're in. His lawyer has said, hey, here's a whole bunch of reasons why I don't think you should indict my client. That means his lawyer is doing his job.
Correct.
Just to be clear, well, if you're innocent, go prove it in court. Yeah, you've never been accused of a crime. I see.
Yeah, cops love to. Well, here. This is not the place to argue this. You should fight it in court. Well, hold on a minute. What if the thing that I'm arguing is I've done nothing wrong, and you have no legal authority to force me to surrender my papers, which I'm protected in with the Fourth Amendment, and the thing that you're telling me is I should just let you screw me, take my documents, enter me into a criminal research system against my will without the authority to do so, and then go argue it in court. Listen, sweet shit, you can't unviolate my rights. There is no mechanism for you. We get to court. I'm right. I win. And hey, I might even get a big settlement paid out by the city because you screwed up. You're probably going to lose your job. And at the end of all that, my rights remain violated. They don't get unbroken.
Yeah, Pit Danny put it very well. So if you want to make someone miserable, make them hire a lawyer. And that's chef's kiss there, buddy. That's fantastic. So yeah, despite just on the surface level, nobody wants to be indicted ever. Period.
Correct.
End of sentence. That is not proof of guilt, you jackbooted dumb fuck. But
yeah, a similar argument to the one that he's attempting to make here is that by pleading the Fifth, you are essentially admitting that there is information that would be inculpatory to some crime, that you would be incriminating yourself by speaking. Pleading the Fifth, right? I actually have a lot of problems with the way the Fifth is worded precisely because of that, because it doesn't say you have the right to remain silent. It says you cannot be compelled to incriminate yourself. Right, and those two things are quite different. We have come to treat it as a right to remain silent, but this right here, it's you've got an innocent man, and the only evidence in the prosecution is methinks he doth protest too much. Right now, given a totality of circumstances and a heaping side of smoky evidence, methinks he doth protest too much might be a reasonable, logical conclusion to draw from a larger breadth of evidence. But on its own, right? Oh, well, you're suspicious because you're a white guy in a black neighborhood or vice versa. No. You're going to need to come up with a little more than that. Right? And now let's talk about the indictment that this guy's talking about, because this is the fresh one. Apparently, they've decided that now, since they failed everywhere else, they're going to indict Trump over evidence that he paid Stormy Daniels hush money some 20 years ago. Really? That's what you've got? On what? Because let's go back real quick to the Stormy Daniels story. Brief summary, Stormy Daniels said, I slept with Donald Trump while he was married, and he paid me never to talk about it. Donald Trump's lawyers come back and they say, Trump denies all allegations made by Stormy Daniels, with the exception of the allegation that a non-disclosure agreement existed and there was money exchanged related to that non-disclosure agreement. That was pursued in courts, and nothing came of it until Stormy Daniels went back to the same papers and retracted her claim and actually said, I lied about the whole thing. I never slept with Donald Trump. You go back to before her retraction, and Trump maintained not his innocence, just the absence of an activity, right? And let me be clear, we were clear on this show. We've seen Stormy Daniels. We've seen Trump's wives.
He probably did it.
The man's got a type. And the balance of probability, like she said she slept with Donald Trump, and we looked at her, and we looked at Donald Trump, and we said, yeah, I buy it.
That
I buy
passes
that.
the smell test.
But he says he didn't. And she doesn't bring any other evidence. And then she retracted and came out and said the whole thing was a lie. It was made up. It was just to hurt his political chances. That's why I did it. And they ran the initial I slept with Donald Trump story on the cover, on the front page. They ran the I lied about everything at the bottom
6,
of the back page.
Yeah, page 6
right. Yeah,
at the bottom.
They hid that shit. They buried it. But it happened. And that's one of the big problems with the news generally is all your major papers, New York Times and et cetera, they will run outright fabrications, bald-faced lies as front page news. And then the next day they will run a retraction.
Somewhere other than the front
Somewhere
page.
other than the front page.
Well, you know...
And what happens then is nobody ever sees the retraction, except for guys like us that read way too much news. Oh, and Sergeant Major wants us to remember that her creepy porn lawyer went to prison.
Yeah, for all sorts of fraud, apparently. And look, let's not forget that what this is it's a campaign finance violation. Okay?
Right.
Well, did you know that every major campaign ends up having to pay some kind of a fine or restitution or whatever? Because, like, Obama had campaign finance violations. Mitt Romney had campaign finance violations. John McCain helped write McCain-Feingold. It's called McCain-Feingold. And John McCain had campaign finance violations. It's sort of like the tax code. It's so labyrinthine and complex. It's almost impossible to not violate it. And so to say, oh, well, this is a $130,000 bribe. A, all the parties involved say, no, it wasn't.
Right.
Just for starters. But then if you look at the things that happened in campaigns and campaign finance, that's not even really that big of a deal. Now, look, I've said before, I'm okay with Trump going to jail for whatever, as long as we can put all the rest of them in jail for the same thing. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, that's one thing. What else? Man, I feel like there's a thing that happened right here in Georgia that I missed and you talked about, and now it's topical again, and we can...
Wait, which one? Because there was a couple of things.
Oh.
But
I thought you were going to the local thing. I didn't realize you were going to, but this is fine.
I wanted to talk about this in particular. This is from the archive. Like I was saying, they'll do stuff that's front page, and now I'm having a hard time finding the one. The New York Times still has one story up about Sicknick that just straight up says he was killed by Trump protesters.
He was killed by Krispy Kreme.
Brian Sicknick followed his Air National Guard unit to Saudi Arabia, et cetera, et cetera. All the hopes of one day wearing a police uniform. Then on Wednesday, pro-Trump rioters attacked that citadel of democracy, overpowered Mr. Sicknick, and struck him in the head with a fire extinguisher, according to 2 law enforcement officials. With a bloody gash in his head, Mr. Sicknick was rushed to the hospital and placed on life support. He died on Thursday evening. Right? So this is the story that the New York Times originally ran. And then, instead of issuing...
Sicknick got beat to death.
Instead of issuing a correction, this is old archive. So instead of issuing a correction to the story, they added a correction note to the bottom of the story. And, damn.
No, it's okay because this makes the point because this is front page, makes it look like.
Yeah, and now it's hard to find the retraction even in the archive.
Anarchy says, if the cop was wearing a helmet, how'd he get hit over the head? Hey, you could wear a helmet and still get hit over the head. I tell you what, you put on a helmet and let me have a Louisville Slugger, and I promise I will lay you out.
Yeah. Yes.
So look, it's a bulletproof vest. Doesn't mean it's a hurt like hell proof vest.
Right.
There's
Yeah, please believe you want to be in a bomb suit when you get blown up, but you don't want to get blown up in a bomb suit. I'm here to tell you, kids, getting blown up, yeah, it's funny when you talk about it a few years later, but I'm still deaf. So you wanted to talk about the Cop City thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so before we get to Cop City itself, the reason that it's worth talking about today is last night, apparently, so Charlie Kirk was doing a speech at UC Davis. And you know what? I don't care who Charlie Kirk is. I know who Charlie Kirk is. But
for the purposes.
But who he is for these purposes is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, a person was giving a speech at a college, right? So he was invited by one of the organizations at the campus, paid for an appearance. Right. He was paid to appear, and it's there for the students. I don't know if they were charging for tickets at the door or whatnot, but Antifa activists have been attacking Kirk in the press and on campus in the lead up to the event. And one of the largest newspapers in the state, the Sacramento Bee, ran a piece Tuesday falsely claiming that Kirk has called for the lynching of trans people, which is a lie. Right? And this is an actual example of misinformation, or in this case, it's actually disinformation, because it was done intentionally. The false statement was made with malice of forethought, with the intent of having the desired outcome, calling for the cancellation of a speaking engagement. And so Antifa went and attacked the building, smashing doors, attacking attendees. The chancellor recorded a video saying he shares students' distress that a student group is bringing a well-documented proponent of misinformation and hate, and who has advocated for violence against transgender individuals to campus. So the amusing thing about the statement that you've made here, Chancellor, is that you have just made a statement of misinformation and hate. In fact, the assertion that your statement is misinformative and hateful is a correct assertion, because your statement is misinformation. And the fact remains thereafter that the statement you made is absolutely oppositive to the truth. Charlie Kirk is not a misinformation guy. He just doesn't agree with the information that you spread. He doesn't agree with your position that it's morally tolerable to mutilate children. He doesn't agree with your position that children, after being born, should still be subject to abortion at taxpayer expense, by the way. He doesn't agree with you. That having a different opinion to you is not the same as lying, as spreading intentional misinformation. Your statement is, you know damned well that the things you said here are false.
Anarchy says the silent majority needs to stop being silent. I think that is already in progress. Like, for example, did you know that a bill to stop gender-affirming care on the youth has made it out of committee here in the local legislature?
I did not.
Yes.
Oh, really?
No, and it only just happened. But look, the point that I was going for was, you know, the silent majority is speaking up because you can actually, people get the politicians that they deserve. And one of the things that makes a politician successful is they sort of understand the pulse of the zeitgeist of the people that elected them. Like, the whole world can make fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right.
But I lived in that district.
They love her.
They love her. Not all of them, and some of them are sick of her shit, okay? But I promise, there are dirt roads that you could drive down right now, and these people would feed you, and probably some venison that they'd shot and made sausage out of themselves.
Yeah. And
they would explain to you certain things about the honkening that happened in 2020 and who the president is, okay? And they love Marjorie Taylor Greene. So if you've got all these houses on the local level, thank God for the 10th Amendment, quite possibly the most important of all the amendments.
Yeah.
But if you have all these houses on the local level that are like, nah, we're just going to make it a criminal offense to chop the genitals off of anybody younger than 18. Okay. Yeah. You know what? That is the majority speaking, so to speak. So
I'm good with it. Here's an article about it from 11 Alive. Georgia House Committee passes bill to ban most forms of, and I hate this language, gender-affirming health care. No, it is mental illness-affirming health care.
It's not gender affirming.
One of the things that is going to, this is going to be one of those things that we look back on in about 5 years now. It's been almost 10 years since this started growing more and more into the public eye, and we've been seeing dramatic increases in the social contagion of acquired transgenderism. So we're going to start seeing soon a rapid rise in people who regret having gone through transgender surgeries, and people who are having their lives dramatically and negatively affected by the fact that they went through the transgender surgery. And I'm not even saying that we're going to see a rise in people not wanting to deal with trans people. For the most part, if you want to go full transgender, nobody needs to know. Right? I've known a few people who went through the process and then left a life behind and didn't tell anybody, and their new friends have no idea that they went through the process, had no idea that they used to be a man or used to be a woman, right? Though that's not where the effect's going to happen. The effect's going to happen when you see more and more of these people suffering severe, long-term ill effects from the surgery that they had, from the dramatic alteration of their body, from the physiological rejection of the mutilation, from the inability to heal that wound, literally to heal that wound. The effects of the ongoing care that continue to make their lives a misery for the rest of their lives after the surgery. And it will be worse for men who transition to women, because a vaginoplasty requires constant remutilation for the remainder of their existence.
Yeah, the word dilation is just cringe. Absolute cringe. Hey,
I didn't expect us to end up on this morning.
Well, I get it. I'm tired of talking about the stupid transgender shit.
I'm not just tired of talking about it and tired of hearing about it. I want to remind everybody that it is a social contagion, which is to say that the more we have to talk about it, the more it spreads and causes harm. The problem for people like us who want to see the social contagion, we would like to see this particular pandemic cured. We would like to see fewer people suffer from the ill long-term effects of this particular pandemic. The problem is that if we stop speaking against it, they don't stop speaking for it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I've said it before. I wonder how long before we get popped for it, but they're not, trans women are not women. They're men in dresses. Like, period. I'm not entertaining your fantasy anymore. Okay? It's just not going to happen. I don't want you to kill yourself because you realize now you can't have children or orgasms and are more likely to have cancer and bone problems and everything else that goes along with it. And that Twitch commenter is, woo, yeah. The troll is strong with that one, and I mean that as a compliment. Everything about that comment is funny. Hey, real quick, Antifa in Cop City in Atlanta.
Yeah,
we never got there. Look,
we never got there today. I have talked about it before.
I know.
We have talked about it before, but
it was worth. Have not talked about it here. Look, I just want to say, isn't it funny?
Did I cover that without you?
I think you did. But okay. Look, funny how that's happening in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's not happening outside of Atlanta in Georgia.
No, not at all.
No. It's happening in Atlanta.
Because it would be over in about 12 and a half minutes anywhere else.
And I'm a little surprised that a bunch of hillbillies haven't gone to solve that problem either. But
there's reasons for that. They don't want to get Scott Adams'd. Well,
that and nobody really likes the cops right now, right? You know, as much as we don't like the Antifa. And as much as I think the First Amendment auditors are doing a great job in a lot of ways out there, the fact of the matter is that America, left, right, and center, are not huge fans of the police right now. On the left, there's this utterly unsupported assertion that cops are all racists that just go around randomly killing white people, or black people. That cops are all white, they're all white supremacists, and they just get off on randomly killing black people. But on the right, there is a very serious and evidentiary supported suspicion that the police are actively weaponized, have been for years, actively weaponized on behalf of the terror-loving left to ignore the violence and crimes of Antifa and BLM while going out of their way to prosecute, grandmothers going on tours of public property and moms standing up against corrupt left-leaning school boards to attempt to protect their children from violent pornography and genital mutilation, right? So if you love your kid, that's the America we've come to, and there's good reason for people on the right to look at the police and say, you are part of the problem. We're in an America now where if you burn buildings down and say it's for the black people, then you're a patriot. But if you love your kids and refuse to murder them for the state, you're a terrorist. And quite simply, whether either side has got the view of the cops completely correct, the fact of the matter is right now, public sentiment, the zeitgeist is not pro-cop.
Yeah, perception equals reality. And Steve actually he beat me to the point. I was going to say that, and he put it very well, hillbillies don't really care if the cesspool of Atlanta burns, really. There's a thought. How many people live in rural Illinois that are like, if a bomb just fell on fucking Chicago, I don't know that I'd be that sad about it.
Yeah.
Right? Nope. Because remember, kids, there are no blue states.
There are only blue cancers.
That's right. There are red states that have blue cancers called cities that have overwhelmed them. But yeah, I'm sure the Cop City Antifa thing will come back around. Because
they're still occupying it.
Which
the Antifa terrorists are still occupying an autonomous zone outside of Cop City. They're still conducting their terrorist activities around Cop City. They're going to keep doing it. And the government, law enforcement, the governor are not taking any significant precautions against it.
Well, and also, and I don't mean this as a throwaway. I'm legitimately mean this. When you say that it's more the mayor's responsibility.
No. Because what's happening there is you have a large organized group with weapons attacking a state facility. And they have declared a region of the forest around that to be an autonomous zone.
Yeah, but Fulton County...
That is the same as me showing up with a platoon in Afghanistan and putting up a wall and saying, this is my military base, which I will defend with arms and violence against you local nationals. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate maneuver, but as maneuvers go, what they are doing is they have established a fortified military position with the intent of conducting war. It is absolutely the governor's responsibility. The only credible and legitimate response to the establishment of an enemy stronghold, a beachhead within your sovereign territory, is to bring the military in and destroy that fortification. You cannot allow a beachhead to remain.
Look, I'm not saying that the governor has zero responsibility, but, you know, let's roll the clocks back just a few years when he had all that bullshit to deal with Mayor Bottoms, where Brian Kemp was like, yeah, okay, it's time to open the state, all right, and this mask mandate bullshit doesn't appear to be working, okay? And then Mayor Bottoms fought him tooth and nail, okay? And she deliberately bifurcated Atlanta as much as possible from the governor, which under normal circumstances wouldn't even be that bad. I'd actually say that that's good, that is your local government at work, except she did it to increase the authoritarian powers of the city of Atlanta. And then you have the perception problem. Okay, it would be really easy if Atlanta was being occupied by Nigerians. Okay.
Instead, it's being occupied by the French.
No, it's being occupied by other Americans.
Nope. There's a lot of foreign actors involved.
I'm not saying
French
that there's not foreign actors involved, but there is a heavy mix of Americans there. You've got the problem, the perception problem. It would be... I wish I'd known we were going to go here because I would.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get going, actually. I've got to be somewhere at 9. Maybe this is what we need to talk about tomorrow.
Okay.
Does this feel like a Thursday show now?
Maybe. maybe. Anyhow.
Okay. In that case, let's put a pin in it there. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.